Hello, BookTube. From a gray, hot, humid, overcast Thursday here in Boston. And what better remedy for gray, hot, humid, overcast Thursday than to rummage through my mail while I natter on and tediously. So I thought we'd do that. I got a bunch of periodicals and a bunch of packages. And the periodicals are a reflection of something that I've mentioned on this channel before, which is that I realized that the strictures that I put on the periodicals that I read regularly in 2016, for obvious 2016 reasons, no longer apply. And that, therefore, I can start to read a million periodicals again. Especially the ones that have some sort of books coverage, but not exclusively related to that. Not only that, I set aside a chunk of money for subscriptions, which really are the gift that keeps on giving. Long after you've felt the pinch of writing that checky poo, you're still getting these things in the mail. So I opened my heart to periodicals of all kinds. I said to myself and to the bee that every one of those little solicitation envelopes that comes in the mail for anything unless it's egregiously mismatched, Automotive Weekly, I don't need. But every one that's roughly within my ambit, I will simply open up that envelope, prize out the prepaid return envelope, write a check, and send it off to every one of them. And that I'll also make a priority out of making sure that I subscribe to every literary journal that's out there. And that has worked. That has started to bring in lots and lots of periodicals. But one of the questions that I had when I did that, since a lot of these periodicals are directly hooked into each other's databases, one of the questions that I had was, if I do that, if I send off, like for instance, there was a week, I think in August, where I sent off 5 of those prepaid envelopes with checks in them in the same day, all to processing centers that are often the same processing center. And I wondered, in addition to everything else, I wondered, will somebody send me a subscription I did not pay for? Will one of these magazines that knows all about this, you'll get those catalogs that offer 20 different, 30, 200 different magazines because they're all largely connected by a parent company or a parent distributor. And I wondered, if I start to signal that I am a willing customer, am I going to get a magazine that I didn't subscribe to, on the hope that maybe I will? If I were running a magazine distribution center, I would certainly do that. I would send something to somebody, not as a trick, but as a way of saying, here's what we're offering. Maybe it's been a while since you sampled it. If you like it, maybe you will subscribe. I would certainly do that, and I think that happened this time around. The first thing that we're getting, no, is not. The first thing we're getting is not even a subscription. It's complimentary for me because I write for it, and that is the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, the broadsheet newspaper on the island of Martha's Vineyard. There is, look at that. Look at the high-definition photos. The photos are just so beautiful. There's an above-the-fold big front-page photo for every single issue of the Vineyard Gazette. It's all local, and it's all amazing. And then the part that everybody reads is in the back. You've got the Vineyard Gardener, which is their most popular feature, I bet. But you've also got Bird News and All Outdoors, columns about the natural world. This is something. Can I make this out? Ordinarily, the pictures are very clear, but I don't know that I'm seeing. The caption for this photo is Morning Gecko, and I don't know that I see a gecko in there. Do you? Do you see it? Is this one of those Rorschach things? I don't think I see a gecko in that picture. Maybe there is one. But I write book reviews for the Vineyard Gazette. I'm not in this particular issue, but I love it. Absolutely love it. I like writing for old-style print newspapers. I am also the book section editor for an old-style print newspaper, Big Canoe News in northern Georgia. Once a month, $30 a year will get you my book section. 2 big, beautiful, full-color pages. The Gazette is not color, but the Big Canoe News is color. And I leave a link on every video. $30 a year will get you, where once a month will get you 12 issues of Big Canoe News, including a dedicated book section. Not an arts section, where every once in a while the editor will work in a book review of 2 full pages of books coverage. But I love, in addition to being the books editor for that print newspaper, I also love writing for other print newspapers. So if in your little corner of the world, your little 2-horse hamlet, if there is a print journal and they occasionally run original content, In other words, if you look at your Sioux Falls, Idaho local newspaper, and there's never anything that isn't bought and paid for from the wire services, so something national, something that's syndicated. If there's never anything like that, never anything but that, if your newspaper, in other words, doesn't run individually commissioned work, then don't bother. But if they do, or if they'd like to, feel free to send them my way, especially if your little two-horse burg is in Ireland, India, or especially Iowa, here in the United States. If you live in a town in Iowa that has a local newspaper that runs independently commissioned copy, kindly let them know that I want to review books for them. Iowa is a very bookish state. I would be happy to conform my reviewing to whatever standards the editor in question wants. I would be happy to do that. If the editor in question, for instance, wants a book section editor, or even not a book section, most local newspapers don't have dedicated book sections, but if they want a books editor for their masthead, somebody they can just send books to, or have that person be in charge of books for that newspaper, I am happy to oblige. My rates are very reasonable when I don't waive them completely. And if you are in a small town in Iowa and you know of such an arrangement, feel free to let me know. There is never too much work along those lines for Steve. I am not in this for the money. I'm in this for the sheer fun of reaching new audiences. And I have for years now had a goal that has gone unfulfilled of the 3 I's: Iowa, Ireland, and India. I would like to meet one of those 3 I's before I pop my clogs and drop off the twig. Okay? But anyway, let's get back to the periodicals. This is the periodical in question. The one that I think some enterprising circulation director out there just said, send this to him. And if he likes it, maybe we get a subscription. We know he's in the market. And that's People magazine, which I haven't read in forever. Like everybody else, the standard joke about People magazine is that you only read it when you're waiting in your doctor's office. It's a cheap subscription, I know that. And I went automatically in this thing to see if there was anything like books coverage, because I'm not going to know half the stars that are in here, nor am I going to care about most of them. I went straight for let's page through here. I went straight for some kind of books coverage, expecting the worst, expecting that it would be just pure virtue signaling, just pure nonsense. And I was surprised because it was not. Right, I got to this. There's a 2-page spread on the casting for a new cable drama about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and whatnot, giving us profiles of the cast members who were in the show and everything. And the minute I saw this, I know this probably doesn't reflect well on my adolescent sense of humor, but the minute I saw this, who is cast as Linda Tripp, Sarah Paulson, I immediately thought if this show had the courage of its convictions, they would have tapped John Goodman to play Linda Tripp. Some of you will remember that John Goodman had a recurring role as Linda Tripp on Saturday Night Live, and it was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. He was probably drunk the whole time and phoning it in, but it worked perfect. That's probably coded misogyny, so I should probably knock it off. But I saw that. I'm sure that who was it again? Sarah Paulson. I'm sure she'll do a terrific job. But I kept thinking, what wouldn't you make more news? Wouldn't you guarantee more eyeballs on the screen if you got John Goodman to reprise his role as the oh, right, here we go. We got to the book section. Before we get to all of the bigger features in the magazine, we got to the book section. Book of the week. And the contributors are Carolyn Levitt, Marion Winnick, and Eric Renner Brown. Oh no, Carolyn Levitt and Marion Winnick are the ones who contributed for books. And the lead-off one is Matrix by Lauren Groff, which is the only Lauren Groff book that I've ever halfway liked. It's plot heavy. It's very heavy on the formal skills of being a novelist, which most young millionaire writers in the 21st century have gotten scot-free on. They just skate on that. Even critics don't require it of them anymore. This is very heavy on that, which is very refreshing, not only because that's what I go to novels or any kind of writing for, but also because it shows that Lauren Groff does have the ability to do that. We're not wrong to pay her shed loads of money to write books. But doing that in the course of this novel, which is, it's a historical novel, so some of you might want to give it a try, but in the course of this novel, the fact that she does that now lays a lot of spotlight on the other formalistic skills of being a novelist that she simply doesn't have, or that she has never worked. So they're little baby toes. They've never exercised them. She's never exercised them at all. I don't know if this novel means that she is wanting to do that. I have a strong suspicion that a lot of these 20-something millionaire authors from Williamsburg in the 21st century have a lurking sense of their own fraudulence. I have a strong suspicion that when they meet at the avocado bar, they're thinking, okay, but I've been hysterically, screamingly praised for literally every minute of my adulthood. Anything that I have ever even so much as hinted that I wanted to do, everyone around me called already a success before I even started it. So I'm kind of wondering now. I mean, I went through that. I demanded it. My lawyer demanded it all through my MFA program that my parents paid for, that I vilify them for paying for. And now I'm kind of wondering, I don't know, does that kind of make me fake? I firmly believe that a lot of overhyped, very Hollywood pretty 20-something novelists in the 21st century think that on some deep level, that I don't know, maybe I should be about more than sexist nihilists smoking on the back porches. Maybe I should be about more than just meandering Twitter posts as plot lines. Maybe I should try to do more than that if I'm going to make this my whole career. If this is any reflection of that, then more power to it. Unfortunately, they aren't all that, because another book featured here is Beautiful World, Where Are You? By Sally Rooney, the honorary lifetime president and retroactive Queen Empress of all of Ireland. So when you read history books that talk about the Roman occupation of Britain and the fact that Ireland was ruled by a loose confederation of kings who were constantly warring with each other, you should tear out that page, because not only is that interpretation wrong, but those facts have retroactively been made wrong. Ireland in the 10th century was ruled by Sally Rooney. Not that we're saying that now. It's that Sally Rooney is so great, so much greater than this Jane, what's her name, person, or this William, I forget his last name, Shake something or other. She's so much better than them. It's not just that we're going to think of her first when we talk about Ireland in any way. It's that she's so much greater than them that she retroactively changes time and recognizable history. So that she was not only the best-selling author in Ireland in the 10th century, but herself Ireland in the 21st century. Not a person, but the whole concept, the whole land, all of its commerce, everything. Her new book is about 4 wastrels, one of whom is a whiny stand-in for herself, going nowhere, talking about things, doing nothing. It's formless, it's aimless, it's, I would say, fairly openly contemptuous of its readers, and it is, I think, #1 bestseller everywhere in the English-speaking world. Became so overnight. Fiction bestseller, of course, Woodward and Costa for Peril, the most dystopian thing that any science fiction writer could ever dream of writing, but it's nonfiction. That is the best nonfiction book, best-selling nonfiction book anywhere in the world. This is the best fiction book, best-selling anywhere in the world, and it's garbage. From front to back, it is actual garbage, just junk. Right on the sentence level, just junk, with the added fillip of the author self-pitying herself throughout the whole thing. Just contemptuous, just contemptible. And it's here, probably getting lots of praise. I almost didn't want to know. The author of Normal People returns with a story of 2 young friends, one a lauded writer, the other equally smart, but less successful. Rubbing your nose in your social media friends' faces. Long emails about everything from boyfriends to single-use plastic fly between them, leading up to a pivotal weekend on the Irish coast. Philosophical, sexy, and perfectly Rooney. It's not philosophical, except in the sense that it's largely nonsense. It's not sexy in any way. This is the most asexual book I have read in a long, long time, and that includes accounts about John Wilkes Booth shooting Abraham Lincoln. But it is perfectly Rooney. I'll give it that. It's perfectly Rooney. It is a complete waste of time. From someone who now believes, like Karl Ove Knausgaard did before her, that not only is it her artistic calling to be a complete waste of time, but that the fact that she can be a squintillionaire while completely wasting people's time says all you need to know about what readers these days are like. Sheeple. So People magazine was off to a little bit of a ragged start for me, but I don't think I paid anything for it. So, and then this next one is one that I did pay for. This is Architectural Digest. Big, beautiful, square-bound thing comes every month. That's all about architecture. And the first half of the magazine is little squibs, tiny little, 100-word pieces about this, that, or the other thing that are very carefully, very artfully intermixed with ads. The front half of the magazine can be, in other words, safely, neatly disregarded because most of it is ads, including this one. I think I join all of BookTube in asking what the Sam Hill this woman thinks she's doing. You want to give Mark Richardson a heart attack? I mean, that's a beautiful wall of books, but what does she think she's doing? But that is also an ad. It's only when you get to the halfway point of Architectural Digest that you start to get what I believe is their specialty, obviously, which is profiles of homes. That's what Architectural Digest does really, really well. Maybe this first half is very useful to the 1/2 of 1%, to people whose money works for them while they're asleep, to people who are making, $1 million a month, that sort of thing. Maybe this front half is useful to them because of the ads. That might be true. Maybe they're looking for, a really she table that costs $5,000 that they really need to add to their home, that sort of thing. But it's only when you get to New England real estate here, ads for homes in Chatham and whatnot with private beachfront property and individual islands off the coast of your kitchen table or whatnot. But then you get to the halfway point and you get to home profiles. I always go straight to that. I look at the front half later, but I go straight to the profiles in the back. And I confess, one of the main reasons that I do is one of the main dissonance between me and Architectural Digest, which is that they seldom show homes that look like places that you'd want to live. They do look expensive. And the Architectural Digest has some of the best photographers anywhere in the magazine business. So they always look really good. But they don't look inviting, is the word that I would use. Look at this. This is from Mexico's west coast. Sure, you've got the stairs, and you've got the chairs, and you've got the open view of the ocean. You've also got every piece of sand that sprays in, every piece of spray that sprays in, every bug that sprays in. No, there's nothing there at all. It's meant to look very simple. Same thing here. That is the lounge. Can you imagine relaxing there? I can't. Every rattlesnake within 100 miles knows it's perfectly welcome. And so on throughout this whole thing. Here is the bedroom with the doors conveniently open for Francis Dollarhide. So I look at something like this and I think, well, okay, but you wouldn't want to live there. The host would be noticing everything you did every minute of the time that you were there, and that's not very inviting. Same thing with this thing. This is where is it? It's in the south of France, and we're told India Madhavi brings her signature flair to a joyful, light-filled getaway in the south of France. And I will admit, it is light-filled, but where is the joy? Where is the joy in any of this? Look at this hallway. I saw a hallway in this one, didn't I? Wasn't it this one where I said, yes, look at this hallway. Look at that. That is, I mean, I realize you're cleaning these places up for the photographers, but this looks exactly like a place where you are being watched at all times to make sure you don't leave even a single fingerprint anywhere. That's not very relaxing. That's not very joyful. But another thing happened. In the back of this issue of Architectural Digest, there are profiles of some homeowners, some artsy-fartsy homeowners. And I was looking at the profiles, and I was looking at the pictures when something happened that some people have been noticing about me for decades. Whether it's on the streets of Austin or the streets of Iowa City or the streets of New York or the streets of Boston, for decades, I have been walking with friends. When they would notice a particular thing happen with me, and they always were quick to comment on it, they would notice that I had noticed a rippling pair of undergraduate abs or shoulders or biceps. And that they would notice that I had noticed and was appreciating. And then in the midst of noticing that, I would completely forget that that young person existed because I would see a dog. Because I would immediately see a beautiful dog, and it would be completely gone. I had one old friend in the streets of New York during dog walking hour say, you know, if I didn't know for sure already the depth of your connection with dogs, I would know it on one of these walks, because that's not fake. You were obsessed, and it disappeared completely. You completely forgot about it when a dog rounded a corner. That happened here. That exact same thing happened here when there was nobody here but me and Frida. I got to the profile of Brandon Fontenot, and I thought, Brandon Fontenot is a work of art. I completely forgot about him. He was completely gone. I just forgot about this gray non-entity blob because I was looking at his boo-boo-boo. I was looking at his beautiful dog. So that was Architectural Digest. Well worth, I think it's $20 a year. Something like that. Well worth the money. And then we have higher profile stuff. We have the New Yorker, for instance, with this very, very melancholy cover. A parent and her child looking at a back-to-school supply window display. But it's not notebooks and backpacks. It's a thermometer or face masks or full body armor or whatnot. One of the beauties of New Yorker cartoons is the way they can get right at the heart of things better than an 8,000-word profile. That just struck me. It really did. But it wasn't just that. There were other things in here that struck me, and we're going to go through them like a dental exam. One of the things that struck me in here were the cartoons. There were a couple of cartoons that were really good. But there was also a poem. We'll find it. This is Poetry Thursday, after all. There was a poem that I started out reading it by dismissing it because it's free form. And then it worked on me. It really did work on me. And we'll see if we can find that. There was also a really good article in here. This is one of the cartoons that I like. There's a bull at a restaurant table, and the caption is, "I think you'll find this wine to be quite infuriating." I almost wanted to jump up in reflexive defense of bulls, but they really are in a bad mood all the time. They are best avoided. They are best avoided. Not true with cows. Cows are wonderful people, but bulls? Ooh, no. There was another. This is also a fairly cute cartoon. You've got, what's his name? Alexander Bell. Isn't that his name? Alexander Bell. You've got, the caption is, "Now that I've invented it, I have this odd compulsion to hold it in my hand wherever I go and glance at it incessantly." I used to have a phone that looked like that. Piece on the side. But there was one other cartoon that DT Max does a long piece on Colm Tobin that will be anchored in large part in his new book that we saw savaged in the TLS. That'll be kind of amazing. Here's a New Yorker cartoon that I don't recognize. Carl Stevens, it looks like, is the artist. Quite good art. But I don't think I've ever seen... I don't think I've seen many of Carl Stevens' work before. It's kids blowing out candles on a birthday cake, and the caption is, "Don't overthink it. Any wish that's not about reversing climate change is pretty pointless anyhow." A little bit bleak when it comes to New Yorker cartoons. I thought there was one other cartoon that I really liked, but I also want to go over the poem. I want to share the poem with you. Oh, yes, of course, this one caught my eye. A shark at a computer, looking at two shark fins. And the caption is, "Mom, Dad, you're barely in frame." Because it's just the dorsal fin, which is all anybody knows about sharks anyway. But I want to read you this poem. This is by Jane Mead, who died in 2019. And it's called "I Wonder If I Will Miss the Moss." And I hated the title, of course, and I hated the way it begins. It begins as sort of just conversational prose stacked like a poem. And I don't typically like that. It's very lazy. And ordinarily what I've said on Poetry Thursday and elsewhere is, if you're going to do that, if you're going to do that kind of Beats-inspired just conversation that looks different, there should be poetic insight in it. There is such a thing as poetic insight. And it can happen even in prose. I still yearn for structure, for scansion. But if you're not going to give me that, you at least have to give me a reason why you consider this to be a poem instead of just a stacked sentence. And at first I didn't get it, and then I think I did. Well, I want to know what you make of this. I wonder if I will miss the moss. That's the name of this poem. I wonder if I will miss the moss after I fly off as much as I miss it now, just thinking about leaving. There were stones of many colors. There were sticks holding both lichen and moss. There were red gates with old hand-forged hardware. There were fields of dry grass, smelling of first rain, then of new mud. There was mud. There was the walking, and the beautiful walking, and it alone filled me, the smells, the scratchy grass heads. All the sleeping under bushes, once waking to vultures above, peering down with their bent heads the way they do, caricatures of interest and curiosity. Once too a lizard, once too a kangaroo rat, once too a rat. They did not say I belonged to them, but I did. Whenever the experiment on and of my life begins to draw to a close, I'll go back to the place that held me and be held. It's okay. I think I did what I could. I think I sang some. I think I held my hand out. I wasn't expecting that to go the way it did. I wasn't expecting it to deepen the way it did. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's the only thing from this New Yorker that I will actually pull out and save. And it naturally will make me want to find more of that poet's work. So that was the New Yorker. Starts off with a very melancholy cover illustration. One of my favorite cartoons in it was also fairly doom and gloomy, and the best poem in it is by someone who's long dead. And then lastly, among the periodicals, I told you it was a lot of periodicals, we have Vanity Fair. This beautiful cover featuring Regina King. I do not know, so I don't know anything about her. And this has an article about a scandal at Exeter boarding school. That's the sort of thing that Graydon Carter's Vanity Fair specialized in. I'm glad to see they haven't abandoned it completely, because I love those kinds of articles. But it also has a little book squib that I went to it automatically, and like with People magazine, I expected the worst. It is by Keziah Weir, Keziah, Keziah Weir, and it's To a Person is the name of this little feature. It's a tiny little box at the bottom of one page. A crop of immersive novels set in churches, deserts, and outer space delves into the weirdness of being human. And there are 7 books here. There are 7 books in this little featurette, and 3 of those 7, one of the 3 is by Anthony Doerr, 1 is by Jonathan Franzen, and 1 is by Richard Powers, which doesn't happen anymore and isn't allowed by law to happen anymore. So is Keziah Weir on her way out the door? Are they getting fired? How on earth could you manage to do that in Vanity Fair in 2021? To give what I presume is much coveted feature space to 3 out of 7 novels, 3 out of 7, by basically dead white guys, or white guys we wish were dead. I was pleased about that. I'm a little bit curious about this wave of Franzen forgiveness that is running through the book's commentariat. I know that a little book squib in Vanity Fair is not really, it's a very outlying part of the book's commentariat. But it looks to me like this Franzen book is going to be well received. And that's interesting to me. But anyway, we're at the 30-minute mark, so we might as well move on to mail. Keep in mind, I never said this channel was interesting, okay? It was the rest of you who said that, not me. Anyway, we've got 3 packages that we can go through here. We'll see if we can find anything really interesting in them. There are no boxes. One is a manila envelope, one is a white envelope, and one is a great big vacuum-pressed cardboard thing. Okay, looks like this first one is contemporary romance. Is that what you are? Are you contemporary romance? This comes out as a paperback original, fantastic, in February. So I need to think about it. It's next year. It's by Alexandria Bellefleur, Well, I wouldn't give to have that as a name. What an incredible name. As opposed to dull as dishwater Steve Donoghue. Good Lord. Alexandria Bellefleur. From now on, I want you all to call me Loretta. Don't you pest me. I want to have babies. Where's the fetus going to gestate? You going to keep it in a box? He's not your Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Anyway, let's get on to the book, shall we? This is Count Your Lucky Stars by Alexandria Bellefleur. Looks like it's going to be a romance novel between opposites. One is a blonde-haired good girl. The other is wearing plaid and has a no-nonsense attitude. That looks like Seattle in the background and a cat in the foreground. So I wouldn't want to meet this demographic in a dark alley. What have we got here? This is the author who had a breakout hit with Written in the Stars and Hang the Moon. I don't know if I know either one of those. This is another steamy queer rom-com guaranteed to delight existing fans and garner many more. Well, it comes out as a really well, attractively designed $15 paperback. You're a good long way towards garnering more fans. To say nothing of the quality of your prose, if you make your book affordable, so somebody can walk into a bookstore and say, oh, okay, well, I don't have to recalculate my mortgage in order to buy this, then they'll probably buy it. But what have we got here? Okay, she burst into prominence with her debut. Won acclaim from New York Times Book Review, Entertainment Weekly, Washington Post. Okay, great. But what about this book? Okay, Margot Cooper doesn't do relationships. She's got to be the one in plaid. Now her entire crew has found the one, and she's beginning to feel like a fifth wheel. Okay. All right, that's great. I don't have a crew. And if you think you do, if you ever use that phrase to refer to what you're allegedly is your circle of friends, you really need to rethink your life. Okay, a crew works for you. But anyway, I know what's meant here. Then Fate, and then there's a parenthetical about Fate that I'm not going to repeat on a family book channel, intervenes. While touring a wedding venue, I'm not saying that it's an inaccurate parenthetical, but I'm not going to repeat it. While touring a wedding venue with her engaged friends, Margot comes face to face with Olivia Grant, her childhood friend, her first love, her first, well, everything. Oh. It's been 10 years, but the moment they lock eyes, Margot's cold, dead heart thumps into her chest. All right, whoever wrote this copy for Avon Books is earning their keep. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I wonder if the good girl with the blonde hair is Olivia. Or maybe I've got them mixed up. Maybe I've got them reversed. Olivia must be hallucinating. In the decades since she last saw Margot, her life hasn't gone exactly as planned. At almost 30, she has recently divorced and uprooted her life for a wedding planner job in Seattle. A fresh start and a chance to follow her dreams. Never in a million years did she expect her important new client's best woman would be the one that got away. Okay, so we know now this is going to be Friends to Lovers, which is a romance gimmick that we've talked about before on this channel. I've mentioned many times that it's extremely satisfying when it's done well, but that it's the hardest romance gimmick to do well. Too often the writer makes it easy. When it isn't easy, it's the most complicated thing in the world. I believe that it's the most common kind of romance in the world. But now we know that, and we also know that the feeling wasn't one way. That feeling of the dead heart coming alive, thumping in your chest, that feeling of that I can look on my past and it's full of mistakes and it's full of non-starters and it's full of also that one time that should have worked, that one time that was special. Now we know they both felt that way. So that's interesting. That's good grist for Friends to Lovers. When a series of unfortunate events leaves Olivia without a place to stay, Margot offers up her spare room because she's, quote, a very good person. Obviously. It has nothing to do with the fact that Olivia is as beautiful as ever and the sparks between them still make Margot tingle. Okay, see what I mean? No offense to this author, Alexandria Bellefleur, but you see what I mean? Throwing up a twist like that where sheer deus ex machina coincidence forces them to be in the same room, in the same house. That is one of the ways that authors tend to make Friends to Lovers easy. Easier than it should be. I always find Friends to Lovers more rewarding the more complicated it is. And, oh my God, I have nowhere to stay, oh, I have a spare room is not complicated. But that's not a deal breaker by any means. Let's see here. As they spend time in close quarters, well, yes, see? Yes. Anyway, as they spend time in close quarters, Margot starts to question her no-strings stance. Olivia is everything she's ever wanted, but Margot let her in once and it ended in disaster. Will history repeat itself, or should she count her lucky stars that she gets a second chance with her first love? Well, I want to know. Sarah at the Bookish Knitter, of course, is my spirit animal when it comes to romance novels of all kinds. And now I want to know what she makes of this, because she's her channel is must watch for romance stuff, and I am still I was converted from snobbery about romance novels to really loving romance novels. If I estimate correctly, based on what Sarah said about her age, I experienced that conversion when she was around 10. But even so, she's much more of an expert on the subject than I am. And I know she has opinions about friends to lovers as well. I think we're probably in agreement that they are more satisfying the more realistically complicated they are. So having an author throw the characters together like this where they're sharing a bathroom, that smooths a lot of the way. We'll have to see. I don't think I remember this author's 2 previous books. If I got them here on this channel, you might want to remind me, but I don't think I did. So I'll be coming to it fresh here. But it doesn't sound like it's books in a series. It's not like she's writing a string of standalones. I have to remember to ask Sarah about it, see what she makes of this, if she knows those earlier books. All right, so contemporary romance. Friends to lovers romance. Could be really good. Then we have one of these white envelopes here. I forgot to mention at the beginning of this video that it might go long, but then again, that would be kind of redundant for one of my videos, wouldn't it? I get yelled at if I make a 5-minute video. That's how warped this little community is. Okay, what is this next one? All right, doesn't have a sheet with it. This is going to be a hardcover in January. Okay, so it's another 2022 release. Another thing I don't have to worry about right away. This is Catherine Barker's book, Waking Romeo. Kind of a graceful cover there. I think we're 2 for 2 as far as covers I can live with. It's interesting. So let's see. We'll go to the back for this one. The year is 2083, and the location is London. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. There's a very, very strong likelihood that most of London will be uninhabitable in 2083. I'm sure that won't be reflected in this book, but nevertheless, you have to start thinking about that. There's a very strong likelihood. But anyway, let's see what we have here. It's the end of the world. Literally, time travel is possible, but only forward. And only a handful of families choose to remain in now, living off the scraps left behind. Okay, so in 2083, time travel is possible, but you can only travel forward in time. You can't go back. I presume that means the people who travel forward in time can't ever come back to reflect on their mistake. They're gone forever. Interesting. Among the families who are left behind is 18-year-old Juliet and the love of her life, Romeo. But things are far from rosy for Jules. Romeo lies in a coma, and Jules is estranged from her friends and family, dealing with the very real fallout of their wild romance. Then a mysterious time traveler, Ellis, impossibly arrives from the future. See, that's what I was wondering. If it's only possible in one way, then how can someone arrive from the future? With a mission that makes Juliet question everything she knows about life and love. Can Jules wake Romeo and rewrite her future? Oh my. All right. Well, that sounds really good too. I guess 2022 is going to have some good books in it. Who is Catherine Barker when she's at home? She lives in Sydney, Australia, where I have never been, with her family. And she spent a lifetime exploring the magic of the universe through storytelling. And her first novel was called In the Skin of a Monster. Did any of you read In the Skin of a Monster? Did you like it? It was published to high acclaim in Australia, winning the Aurelius Award for Best Young Adult Novel. And this is her second novel, the first to be published in the United States. I'm kind of amazed that a book would win any kind of awards in Australia, since everyone who writes to me, everyone who emails me from Australia, is universally in agreement that Australia is a book-hating country, where it doesn't have any literary prizes, doesn't have any literary events, and charges $50 for you to even look at a book in a bookstore. So you walk into your Australian bookstore and say, "I've heard about the new Sally Rooney. I hear it's really bad. I'm not sure I'd like to buy it. Can I look at it?" "Yes, that'll be $50. "No," I said, "I'm not sure I want to buy it." "No, it's $50 just to look at it." And let's not even talk about Australian postage. So that's good to know that there's a thriving, although I assume Fight Club-esque subterranean literary establishment somewhere in Australia. So we have Waking Romeo by Catherine Parker, set not in Australia but in London in 2083, where time travel is possible in one direction, forward, leaping literally into the unknown. Can't go back. Past is written. Very, very interesting. And then we have the last thing here for this enormous, tedious video is one of these vacuum pressed cardboard things that I will deal with on my own. You have to tear it apart, basically into pieces, because everything inside it is adhesive. So if you just tear it a little, it sticks to everything. And I can't have it sticking to everything because I've got a new addition to the Steve Donoghue menagerie here at Hyde Cottage. Some of you will know, you of course know about Frida, and you long-timers know about my girls, the dogs before Frida. People in real life, people I know in real life remember the dogs before my girls. I also have sparrows, a group of brawly South Boston Irish Catholic sparrows who live in the hedges outside the house and depend on my food. I feed them several times a day. I feed them and water them in the boiling hot days of summer. I also feed them regularly on very rainy days when they can't hunt for their own food. I feed them regularly all winter long, when sometimes even in Boston it gets a little cold. And they don't thank me for it. They're just a bunch of bad attitude. That's all they are. They're a bunch of jerks. But in addition to that, recently, in the back, in the window, the little window fronting the kitchen, I have had squirrels as visitors, 2 brothers. Beautiful things. The bigger of the 2 brothers is almost the size of Frida. And their tails are just lovely. Their hair has the faintest of russet tinging around it. And they are getting accustomed to the almonds that I leave out on the back of there's a platform right outside the kitchen window. They're getting accustomed to the fact that they can come there and get almonds. Now, I have read my share of books about people who feed squirrels out their kitchen window. And I've read what comes next. Which is, as the squirrels get more and more accustomed to it, they start to rap on the window. They're even willing to come inside. I'm not going to be able to let things go that far because their size doesn't matter. They are rodents, which means that in their world, whether they know it or not, this little dog is an apex predator. Frida is perfectly aware of the size of other things, other dogs, bicycles, humans, cars. She's perfectly aware of all of that and has the appropriate sense of caution. Except if you're a rodent. If you're a rodent, the kind of thing that she was bred to kill, then she knows exactly where she stands with you. And she knows how to kill you, and she knows how to do it without you laying a glove on her. And a squirrel's going to know that. So no squirrel can come in here. What would they encounter anyway? If they came into the kitchen, I can just picture it to be like in a cheap horror movie. They'd step through the window into the kitchen and say, "This room smells of death." Yes, because 42 mice have died in that room. All at the hands of one person. But I wonder if I'll get to know them better. But I can't have detritus from a book haul sticking to everything if I'm going to worry about them being out back with the garbage and whatnot. Anyway, what have we got? Oh, very good. Okay, we saw this already, and a lot of you expressed interest. I don't think I had read this at the time. Now I have read it. And your interest is well justified. Well justified. This is Wendy Holden's new book, The Duchess. This is the author of The Royal Governess. Wendy Holden wrote a book, a novel, about the Royal Governess. A woman named Crawford. It was called Crawfie by her 2 young princesses, the 2 princesses, one of whom went on to become queen. She was their Royal Governess, and when she was a little older, Crawfie wrote a book about her time in royal service. And that might not sound like much because they're a dime a dozen now, but it was totally undone. It was totally not done at the time. And the royal family spurned her completely, just completely. Vilified her, refused to visit her, refused to attend her funeral, when she did as much as anybody to raise these 2 girls, Queen Elizabeth and her sister. And Wendy Holden wrote a terrific, very good, very sympathetic novel about Crawfie, called The Royal Governess, that you can find. It's in print. It's delightful. If you missed it, it's really good Windsor historical fiction. And Wendy Holden and I actually talked about that book and all things Windsor in a Zoom conversation that you can find on this channel. If I remember, I'll leave a link to it down below. It was a lot of fun. And we keep meaning to talk about this book, her new book. we were all lovey-dovey roses and kisses for her first book, but not for this one. For this one, we are in epic, titanic disagreement, because this is an equally sympathetic novel about Wallace Warfield Simpson, the twice-divorced American adventuress who snared the heir to the English throne. King Edward VIII didn't even sit on the throne long enough to have his coronation because he abdicated in order to marry the woman I love. Wallace Simpson. A brainless, grasping, avaricious adventuress. One of the least sympathetic figures in British history. Who, in addition to everything else, when you line up all the negatives, all the horrible stuff about her personal past in Baltimore and wherever, all the horrible ways that she behaved when she was in England, all the horrible lies that she told to herself and to others, you line up all of that stuff, you think, boy, that's bad enough, and then you have to add in that she was really pally with the Nazis. Almost an impossible task to write a sympathetic novel about this vicious, insectile creature. And yet Wendy Holden tries, and because she is so skillful as a novelist, you might actually feel a twinge of sympathy for Wallace Warfield Simpson at some point in the length of this novel. Don't be fooled by the cover. If you want to Photoshop this image so that it's more realistic, you'll want to emphasize the boniness of the shoulder. You'll want to grow these knuckles until they look like independent mountains. And you'll want to draw that chin down and add a significant sort of underbred terrier underbite. And also, you want a beak in the nose. If you want to make this realistic, you'll do all of those things to this picture. I loved this book. Loved it. I yelled at it on every page. Literally every page. This is the book that Wallace Warfield Simpson dreamt her life was in reality. It was not. It most certainly was not. It demonstrably was not. But this is her version of events. And bless Wendy Holden for trying to do this. Now, you would get a very different reaction from me if this were a biography. And that has been tried by biographers many times. That has been tried. It doesn't fly as biography. But this is what we want our novelists to do. Right? This is what we want our novelists to do. We want our novelists to challenge us in this way, in exactly this way. There are almost no, when Wendy Holden and I finally do arrange our Zoom chat about this book, I will talk about the exceptions, but there are almost no deviations from fact in the course of this book. It's just the best, most sunniest reading possible put on those facts. You're going to love it. You're absolutely going to love it. I would argue, as paradoxical as it seems, that the more you hate Wallace Warfield Simpson, the more you're going to love this book. One way or another, whether you like Mrs. Simpson or you don't, this book confirms what the Royal Governess indicated to me, which is that, and I'm not being biased here, I talk to all sorts of authors, I like a lot of them. I don't always say nice things about them, but I like a lot of them. I'm not being biased here. That Wendy Holden is terrific. She's a terrific fun, a wonderful author. In addition to that, this confirms the impression that I got with the Royal Governess, which is that this is a historical novelist to read for the rest of her career. She's just that good. These novels aren't just bored, pan-shallow fact-raking. They're well-constructed. They're dramatically compelling. So I cannot recommend this book strongly enough, and sooner or later, she and I will get our schedules together and give a talk about this book so that you can listen to us disagree. You can listen to us fight with each other. And of course, I'm wondering, it says in the back of this book somewhere, I'm of course wondering who the next outlier in the Windsor world will be for her. You know, the Royal Governess was about, Crawfie was an outcast of the royal household, and so was Mrs. Simpson. Crawfie unjustly, Mrs. Simpson entirely justly, despite what this book says. So who's the next outcast? My vote, strongly hope it's Princess Margaret. That would be incredible, the ultimate outsider. But we shall see. It could be Princess Diana. Either way, once you've read this book, and especially once you've read both of them, you won't care who it is. You'll be signed up. You'll be on board for the next one. So there you go. That is our book mail. We have The Duchess in its finished copy. This is also a paperback original. Yes, this is a $17 paperback, so you can just go to your bookstore and buy this. Then we have Waking Romeo, science fiction for 2022, and Count Your Lucky Stars, also a paperback original for the new year. So we've got 2 bits of romance and 1 bit of merciless money grubbing. Plus a bunch of magazines. So there you go. There's an hour-long video, basically about nothing at all. I'm going to wrap it up now, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.